What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into Witty Sports Talk for another video today. And this time it's about the Premier League. I got my predictions coming up for you in this video. Super quick, not going to be drawn out at all. I'm going to try and get straight to the point, try and keep this video a little short, and just predict 1 through 20, give a reason why I think they're going to be there, and we'll see what my soccer acumen is like. I did my season team ratings a couple weeks ago, just from last Premier League season. So now this year I thought I'd give my preview before the season starts, and then of course 9 months from now we'll see how I did. I know a lot of other YouTubers do this that are actually well known, and I don't know, most of them live in Europe obviously, but actually have a huge following and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I thought I might as well jump in with it, even though not as nearly many people are going to see this as some others, like Spencer FC or Mini Mentor or anyone else over there really that does these sort of things. So we'll see how I do 1 through 20 in the Premier League right now. All right, we'll start off with this first grouping, kind of 1 through 3 here. Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, I have in that order, and I just think they're kind of the 3 teams that are ahead of everyone else by a good bit in a sense. I think that, as we've seen with Man City, they have dominated, the past decade, really, but winning it the past 4 years in a row now, and they were the first team to do that. So, we'll see if they can make it 5. I'm hoping, as far as just from a fan perspective and from a neutral perspective, that they don't. And so with that, that's why I have Arsenal winning the league. They've got to win it at some point, surely. They've come second place, I think, the past 2 years or something like that. And Arteta is so close to winning it. They have a good team. They just always slip up 1 or 2 games, especially against City, or they'll do a random draw against like Bournemouth come March or May, April, and slip up and lose it by 1 point, 2 points, kind of like they did last year. But Arsenal have got to win it at some point. I mean, just for the sake of change, I hope they win it, just to give the Premier League and to give the soccer world something different to look at. And the leagues get boring. We people always complain that the Bundesliga was boring when Bayern was winning a whole bunch of times. And look, this year or last year, I guess, Leverkusen won it. Great league. PSG always wins League One basically. The Serie A is more entertaining now when Juventus isn't winning it every single year. So hopefully, just for the neutral's perspective, Arsenal or somebody can win it. That's not Man City. But I have Arsenal winning it. Man City in second. Liverpool in third. Man City, just please stop winning it. That's all I have to say there. They could very easily win it. They're the odds-on favorite to win it, but hopefully they just don't. I don't really see a reason why they won't or why they can't, but hopefully they just don't. Liverpool, they got the new coach over from the Netherlands, and it's still a very good team. Finished third last year, and with Klopp leaving, not much has really changed. They haven't brought in a huge amount of players, which is interesting. Not a huge amount of players coming in yet. But at the slot, we'll see how he does as a new manager, adapts, to the Premier League and everything like that. But he seems like a big, tough guy, and not like somebody who's going to, take a lot of BS or anything like that. So I think he kind of adapts pretty well in there, kind of a man manager and a real tough guy, which I think works well for the Liverpool squad. So I have them in third place. Now moving on to the next group of teams, kind of 4 through 8 here. Manchester United I have in 4th, Newcastle 5th, Chelsea 6th, Tottenham 7th, and Aston Villa 8th. I have, for Man United, it's 4th. Like I said in my Premier League review, I'm a Manchester United fan, but I don't think we're going to be great. And so, literally in my notes here, I have we're either 4th or we're going to be 10th, and there's going to be a new manager. There's no in between. I don't really think that the team is coming in 7th or 8th like they did last year, and I think that if the team starts poorly, Ten Hag's gone. If the team does well, then I think they can ride the momentum and finish maybe 4th. I think is maybe the peak, unless Liverpool just kind of collapse or don't do as well. Then United can maybe get 3rd. But there's plenty of other teams, like I said, with Tottenham, Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle right below them. Any of those teams could also just be better than Manchester United. And so this kind of 4 through 8, very tricky. Any of these teams can really end up anywhere. I think with Chelsea, the new manager from Leicester, we'll see how that ends up. There's just not a lot of consistency there lately, and so that's why I don't know really how high they're going to finish. Enzo Marcesca, I don't know how to say his last name, but from Leicester, I'm sure he's a great coach, but just a whole new management again, I think is a lot for the players. Newcastle, I think they do better than Villa simply because they don't have European games this year, or they don't have the Champions League. Villa now does, so they kind of swap roles from last year, and I think that makes a difference because we see a lot of times when I think from outside the top six has a great season, finishes 5th or 6th, gets those European games. That team and those players aren't used to playing the extra minimum 6 games, sometimes more games in a year. And that makes the season a whole bunch more congested when you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Sunday, maybe a Thursday night game if you're in Europa League. And that makes it a lot harder. I don't know if Villa has the depth for that yet. They're building well under Emery. They've had some great signings come in. But just with, I think, European football might be a little bit too much. I think the Champions League, along with the Prem, is a little bit too much to handle for them this year. So I think they take a step back, maybe finish 7th, 8th place. Tottenham, nothing new there. They haven't really upgraded, I don't think. They just signed Solanke for like $65 million. Don't really know if he's worth $65 million, but we'll see. Speaking of signings, Manchester United actually have done really well with the signings, I would say. With Ineos and the new ownership and everything coming in, I would say that the team actually has spent quite well. Xerxes, we'll see what happens with him up top. Obviously, Haaland and Lenny Euro are now injured. Euro, another one of the really good signings that they brought in. They just signed De Ligt, who, coming from Bayern, will now be very important with Euro being out. We'll see how he kind of fits in there. A lot of old Ajax guys coming in to Ten Hag's squad at United. We'll see what happens there and how well they adjust to the Premier League. We kind of saw with Anthony last year, not good. So, United's kind of an up-in-the-air thing. Same with Chelsea, new management. Tottenham, I think, is the most consistent team out of these guys, where it's just like, I think they're just going to be 6th or 7th, and that's kind of where it's at. Because they just don't have any superstars up top or anything that are going to win the game for them. I mean, Son is great, but he's not, Holland or, anyone that's going to score 40 goals in a season. And then Villa, I think just the European game is going to be a little bit too tough for them. Moving on to the next set of teams here, Fulham, Crystal Palace, West Ham, and Brentford. Fulham, a very solid team. I just think they're better than the ones below. Silva as the head coach, he does a really good job. I think they have a really good team. Obviously, Palhinha leaving to Bayern is a tough loss in the midfield, but I think, they'll be okay. Crystal Palace lost Elise. Sarr from Watford coming in. We'll see how he does. That's a huge loss for Crystal Palace. They're just kind of one of those average teams that are not going to get relegated, but they're not really challenging for the top 6 at all. So just going to whack them in there in the mid-table. These are also hard ones to manage. I mean, from 15, 14 up through about 8 is really tough, just because those teams can intertwine all season long, and you really just don't know. Anyway, West Ham and Brentford at 11 and 12. So yeah, those, with West Ham, no more David Moyes. Lopetegui is in now. See how he does. He was okay at Wolves, and then just the money situation or something didn't work out there, so he didn't stay. And then Brentford is just solid. They're just decent. So I call them 12th. Moving on now to the next set of teams with Bournemouth, Brighton, Everton, Wolves, and Ipswich Town. Ipswich staying in 17th, staying in the league. I think they're the most solid of the new teams coming up. It's nothing crazy, but I just think that they're okay. They're gonna barely escape. And so obviously the 3 teams getting relegated, which we'll get into in a second, are Leicester, Nottingham Forest, and Southampton. But in the end, with those teams kind of just all in that bunch, I mean, Brighton have a new manager. Don't even know how to say his name. We'll see what happens there. Everton's the same as last year. Sean Dyche, another masterclass with a terrible team that, he'll kind of, 4-4-2 it all the way to the end of the league, and we'll see what happens. They could go down, to be honest, but I don't think they will. I think they're kind of too big to go down in a sense. but we'll see what happens there. With Wolves, Gary O'Neill is solid. He's a great manager in my opinion. The team is fine, and 16th I think is kind of where they end up. It's basically where they were last year, around that mark. I think maybe like the 14-16 range. So they're just kind of there again. And all these teams are just solid. They're just better than the team's going to go down. Which team's getting relegated? Leicester City, Nottingham Forest, Southampton. Leicester City lost their manager to Chelsea, which, as I mentioned earlier, we'll see how he does there, but I just think that's a huge loss. They obviously blew away the championship. The team is a lot better than the championship teams, but with the manager being out, that's just tough, really. I will see how well the players can kind of drive the team forward with, trying to stay in the Premier League. Obviously, plenty of them do have Premier League experience, which would be helpful. But just dealing with a new manager and everything coming in, obviously the teams in the Prem get better every year, and Leicester, I think, just barely get relegated. I think it's back and forth between Ipswich and them all year long. As with Nottingham Forest, they just have to go down at some point. Like, surely, I just feel like I watched them the past 2 seasons, and I'm saying, how have they not been relegated? So I just think they have to go down. They're just going down this year. I just refuse to believe they're not going down. And they probably will finish, 16th, 17th like they did this past year somehow and not get relegated by 1 point. But they just have to go down at some point. Like, they just do not have the quality. I don't know how they're escaping this drop zone every single time, but they are. One team not escaping the drop zone will be Southampton. They're just way too young, not enough quality. Obviously, got promoted through the championship playoff, and I just don't really see the talent there. They haven't made any huge signings that come to the top of my head. And so with that, I think they're the bottom of the Prem, 20th place. So Southampton, Nottingham Forest, Leicester City are getting relegated. Manchester United, Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal are making up the Champions League spots, with Arsenal the champion. Again, Man City might as well win it again, but I'm just hoping for that not to happen. I'm hoping for something different. So a change-up, please just somebody win it, not named Manchester City. I don't really care who wins it, to be honest. Just someone not City win it, and Arsenal, the past couple weeks, have had the best chances. So that's what I'm going to go with. We'll see how I do. Not really sure. I kind of made the list in about 5 minutes, probably less. So, but you know what? Hey, honestly, if you overthink it, then you're going to do worse than if you just do it at the top of your head, to be honest. So that was my philosophy. So we'll see how it goes come 9 months from now, come May, and we'll see, then how will I do. But until then, enjoy the Premier League season kicking off this weekend, and until I see you again, have a good one.